So here we have a big huge decimal number, all right, with a whole number and a fractional part, and we want to read that in words. Okay, so I'm gonna read out the whole number part. Okay, so what you can do is just take your hand and kind of cover up the decimal, ignore it for now. Okay, so we have three different blocks. All right, so we have our hundreds blocks, we have our thousands blocks, and our millions blocks. So I'm going to read everything in the millions blocks and then end it with the word million. So that's straightforward. So 5 million. And then in the thousands block we have 878. So I'm going to follow that up with the word thousand. So 870-8, and then 1,000. And then this is, you can think of it as the ones block. So it ends up with the ones. We don't have to read out anything afterwards. So 948. Okay, so 948, and you can think of this as the ones block, this is the thousands block, and this is the millions block, right? Okay, so we've gotten to our decimal, and the decimal tells us that we're gonna add to our whole number a fraction. Okay, and adding is and. Okay, and that's why we put the and in. Then we're gonna read. So the decimal, okay, is our clue to put in the word and. Okay, provided that you have a whole number. If you don't have a whole number, you just have a decimal, then we just write out the decimal. We don't have to say and. Okay, so and is when you have a whole number part and you have a fraction part. Okay, if you have only one of them, there's no and. Okay, so the trick for the fraction part, we're just going to cover up the whole number, okay, like that, and any leading zeros, and then read that number, 8. Okay, so and 8. E-I-G-H-T. And then we're going to read out the last decimal place. Okay, so the 8 is in the ones, 0 is in the tenths, okay, tenths, and the 8 is in the hundredths. So and 8 hundredths. And that's it. All right, let's do this one. So we're going to hide the decimal and anything that comes after it and just read that number out. That one's pretty simple. It's the 5 is in the ones block, so it's just 5. Okay, and we read the decimal as and. And then we're going to cover up the whole number and any leading zeros before we get to our actual fractional part. Okay, so I'm going to cover up these zeros. Okay, and once you get into numbers, if you have other zeros, you don't ignore those. It's just the leading zeros we ignore. All right, then we read this number. Okay, so we're pretending this is a whole number, so it makes the 1 in the ones place, the 7 in the tens, the 9 is in the hundreds, and the 3 is in the thousands. So the 971, we could put a little space here, and that would be like, this would be like the ones block, and then the 3 would be in the thousands block. So we're going to read that 3,971. Okay, so 3,970 dash 1. Okay, and the nice thing is if you spell it wrong, it kind of underlines it and tells you. Okay, so 71, and then we read at the last decimal place. Okay, which is millions, I believe. Let's see. So tenths. Well, the 5 is in the ones, so this is tenths. The next 0 is in the hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, the 7's in the 100,000ths, and the 1 is going to be in the millions. And that's it. All right, let's do a couple more questions. So here we have, I'm going to do the same trick. I'm going to cover up the decimal and anything that comes after it. So we have 5,419. Okay, and we read, because we have a whole number part and we have a fractional part, we're going to read the decimal as and. Okay, and then we're going to cover up the whole number, the decimal, and any leading zeros before a number. And that just leaves us with, whoops, let's go back to that. And that just leaves us with 8. Okay, so I'm going to write 8, and then the last decimal place. So 8, and the last decimal place is in the thousandths place. So tenths, hundredths, thousandths. And that's it. Here's a fun one. So I'm going to do the same trick. I'm going to cover up the decimal and the fractional part, or the fraction part. And so we end up with, we have the ones block, we have the thousands block, and we have the millions block. So it's going to be 8 million. So 8 million. Then, in the thousands block, I have 545. So 540, don't forget there's no U in 40, 5, and then, because this is in the thousands block, I'm going to write 1,000. 45,000, so 8,545,000, and then in the ones block, I have 196. Okay, so 196. Don't forget the dash, 6. Okay, then because we have a whole number part and a fraction part, I'm going to read the decimal place as and. Then for the fraction part, I'm going to cover up the whole number and the decimal point and any leading zeros, but in this case there are no leading zeros. I don't want to give you the impression that there are always leading zeros. Okay, there are no leading zeros here, so I'm just going to read out this number. Okay, so I'm going to treat it like it's a whole number. So the 0 is going to be in the ones place, the 9 is in the 10, the 6 is in the hundreds, the 2 is in the thousands, and the 3 is in the 10,000s. So that makes the 32 in the thousands block and the 690 in the ones block. Okay, so I'm going to read that as 32,690. So 32,690. Okay, and then we have to read out this last decimal place. Okay, so tenths, hundredths, no, it's ignoring me, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths. Okay, it's very wordy, this one. 100,000ths. Okay, so let's read that whole thing out. 8,545,196 and 32,690 hundred-thousandths. That's a mouthful. I said yeah. I said oh yeah. All right, let's just do this one last one. Before the decimal point, I have 45. So 45. And read the decimal point as and then I'm going to ignore this part and just read what comes after. So 985. And then read out the last decimal place, which is in the thousandths place. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. All right, and that's it for level 8. Have a good day.